Breaking news from the world of Formula One as the championship caravan rolls into Bahrain this weekend. But instead of focusing solely on the on-track action, headlines are once again dominated by controversy, most notably surrounding McLaren's internal team dynamics and a fresh penalty imposed on Carlos Sainz that has left the paddock buzzing. All eyes are on McLaren, a team that should be celebrating a strong start to the 2025 season but finds itself under a growing wave of criticism for what many are calling a clear case of favoritism. Allegations are mounting that the team is giving preferential treatment to Lando Norris over his teammate Oscar Piastri, despite the Australian's impressive performances and evident determination to fight for the world title. This narrative is not new, but it has gained renewed momentum after recent events. While both drivers have each taken a race win, Norris in Australia and Piastri in China, the cracks began to show in Suzuka, where McLaren's race day decisions have come under serious scrutiny. The Japanese Grand Prix saw Max Verstappen take yet another dominant victory for Red Bull, but it also exposed what some believe to be strategic mismanagement within the McLaren garage. The turning point came during the pit stop phase. With tire wear relatively manageable and track position crucial, many expected McLaren to gamble with a bold strategy, perhaps keeping Norris out longer to run in clean air and go for an overcut. Instead, the team opted to pit him on the same lap as race leader Verstappen, effectively mirroring the Red Bull's move and forfeiting any strategic edge. Analysts and fans alike were left scratching their heads, convinced that a more aggressive call could have changed the outcome of the race. Adding to the growing frustration was the team's refusal to allow Piastri to pass Norris in the final stint, even though the young Australian was demonstrably faster and appeared to be in a position to challenge for second place, or possibly more. The final gap between the top three was barely over 2 seconds, suggesting that team orders, or the lack thereof, may have cost McLaren a double podium in reversed order, or even a victory that now feels like a missed opportunity. This isn't just about one race. For many observers, it's part of a larger pattern that dates back to 2024, a season in which McLaren was repeatedly criticized for playing it too safe, squandering strategic chances, and potentially favoring Norris when the data didn't necessarily support it. What makes it more painful for fans of Piastri is the sense that history is repeating itself, right when the stakes are higher than ever. Oscar Piastri is not simply a talented rookie anymore. He is a contender. His consistent pace, tactical intelligence, and calm under pressure have marked him as one of the rising stars of the grid. Yet the perception that he is being held back or treated as a number 2 driver in a team that publicly denies any hierarchy is becoming harder to ignore. Speaking before the Bahrain Grand Prix, McLaren's team principal Andrea Stella addressed the controversy in a tone that mixed reassurance with realism. He acknowledged that managing 2 high-level drivers is a complex challenge and that not every decision will satisfy everyone. Still, he insisted that the team remains committed to fairness and performance above all else. Whether fans and critics believe that is another matter. Outside the McLaren camp, another storm is brewing, this time around Carlos Sainz, who has found himself once again on the receiving end of the FIA's disciplinary measures. This time, the Spaniard has been penalized for using inappropriate language during the Bahrain Grand Prix, a move that has stirred debate about where the line is drawn between passion and professionalism. The timing of this penalty is notable, coming just days after Sainz was slapped with a significant fine for leaving the grid before the start of the Japanese national anthem in Suzuka, a decision apparently caused by sudden stomach discomfort. While the rulebook may be clear, many are questioning whether Sainz is being disproportionately targeted, especially as speculation swirls around his future in Ferrari and the looming driver market shakeups for 2026. As we look ahead to the action in Bahrain, the narrative is as much about what's happening off the track as it is about lap times and tire strategies. McLaren is under a microscope for how it manages internal competition. Carlos Sainz is battling criticism and sanctions as he fights to stay relevant in an increasingly ruthless driver market. And fans are left wondering whether these developments will ignite new rivalries or fracture existing alliances. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. This weekend in Bahrain could reshape the championship picture in ways we didn't expect. Andrea Stella didn't sugarcoat it. Speaking candidly to reporters ahead of a crucial race weekend in Bahrain, the McLaren team principal openly acknowledged a growing concern that has been silently brewing within the paddock for weeks now. The very real possibility that, as the season heats up, one of his drivers may end up feeling marginalized. "I can't guarantee that we won't upset one of our drivers," Stella admitted. "That's the reality. When you've got two incredibly talented racers in your lineup, each with championship ambitions, the stakes are always high. It's a double-edged sword. There's tremendous long-term gain in having a pair of drivers pushing each other to the limit, but that naturally creates situations where one of them may feel slighted by how a race plays out or by a tough call from the pit wall." His honesty was refreshing, but also revealing. It laid bare the complex balancing act McLaren now faces. Gone are the days when one driver clearly led the charge. Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are now seen not just as fast, but as legitimate contenders for the 2025 World Championship. And with that reality comes a storm of strategic dilemmas, political landmines, and emotional pressure that few teams are truly equipped to handle. Reflecting on the recent Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka, Stella pointed to a particularly difficult strategic call the team had to make. "We saw opportunities to attack Max Verstappen early on," he explained, "but every one of those scenarios came with a high risk of getting stuck in traffic. And at Suzuka, which is famously a nightmare when it comes to overtaking, that could have completely destroyed our race." McLaren's decision to pit Lando Norris at the same time as Verstappen drew harsh criticism from fans and analysts alike, who believed they missed a golden chance to undercut Red Bull or try an offset strategy to gain track position. But Stella stood firm in defending the call. "People look at the outcome and assume we played it too safe," he said. "But what they fail to appreciate is just how unusual the 2025 Suzuka race was. Tire wear was almost non-existent. A poorly timed safety car could have reshuffled the entire pack. This wasn't your typical Suzuka." He added, "We went into that race with an open mind. Maybe the best window to go aggressive was at the start, but it was a high-stakes gamble. And early in the season, you have to manage risk. It's not the final round where everything is on the line and you throw caution to the wind. We're still shaping our campaign." And yet, behind Stella's composed reasoning lies an unresolved tension, one that is only intensifying with each race. While McLaren has presented a unified front to the outside world, rumors are swirling about how long Oscar Piastri will accept being the secondary figure in a team where many already suspect the scales tip in favor of the more experienced Norris. Piastri, to his credit, has so far maintained an admirable level of professionalism. His calm demeanor in post-race interviews, his polite deflections when asked about strategy, and his refusal to feed media speculation have prevented the situation from spiraling into open conflict. But make no mistake, the ambition is there. The hunger to fight for wins, to challenge for the title, and to prove himself as more than just a promising talent is burning brighter than ever. Insiders say Piastri was particularly frustrated after the decision in Suzuka to keep him behind Norris in the final stint, despite clear evidence that he had superior pace. With the top three cars finishing within a 2-second spread, many believe that if McLaren had allowed Piastri to attack, the outcome might have been very different. And this is where the danger lies. When both drivers are capable of winning races, any perception of internal favoritism can be corrosive. It can turn healthy competition into resentment. And as the season progresses and the points margin between title contenders tightens, that tension will only intensify. Stella didn't shy away from that either. "Yes, it complicates things," he said, "but it also gives us more tools to fight at the front. That's why we've worked so hard to build a car and a team environment that supports two competitive drivers. It's a challenge, but one we welcome." With just a handful of points separating the top contenders in the championship standings, the upcoming Bahrain Grand Prix could be a pivotal moment, not just for the title fight, but for McLaren's internal power balance. A single strategic decision, a miscommunication, or a controversial call from the pit wall could swing the momentum toward either driver. And with pressure mounting from fans, sponsors, and stakeholders, the question looming over Woking is simple. Can McLaren navigate this minefield without losing sight of the ultimate goal? While McLaren's internal dynamics continue to make headlines, the world of Formula One has also been shaken by yet another controversy, this time involving the ever-outspoken Carlos Sainz. The Spanish driver, known for his straightforward demeanor and sharp tongue, has once again found himself at the center of a disciplinary storm. Just days after receiving a steep fine for an incident at Suzuka that many considered trivial, Sainz exploded in frustration during a media appearance in Bahrain, prompting speculation that yet another sanction was on the way. The source of his anger? A €10,000 fine levied against him for being 5 seconds late to the Japanese national anthem ceremony at the previous race. The reason for his delay, according to medical staff and team officials, was a brief stomach upset, an uncontrollable situation that many felt warranted leniency. But the FIA thought otherwise, issuing the fine and suspending an additional €10,000, citing a breach of protocol. "I think I'm one of the strongest advocates for punctuality," Sainz told reporters. "Especially when it comes to the national anthem. But I was 5 seconds late. Just 5 seconds. And that costs 10 grand? That's a tough pill to swallow." Then came the line that sent shockwaves through the F1 world. "I don't even know if they'll fine me again for saying this," Sainz said, "but this is bullshit." The moment instantly went viral, igniting social media and drawing sharp reactions from fans and pundits. Many saw it as a justified outburst from a driver pushed to the edge. Others viewed it as a dangerous precedent in a sport already struggling with its public image. But in a surprising twist, the FIA decided not to impose further penalties, perhaps recognizing the blowback from what many saw as bureaucratic overreach. Still, the damage was done. Sainz's remarks have exposed a growing disconnect between the governing body and the drivers. And with emotions running high, the question is whether this friction will escalate further in the coming weeks. As F1 heads into Bahrain, the atmosphere is thick with tension, both on and off the track. McLaren is grappling with internal power struggles. Sainz is pushing back against what he sees as institutional injustice. And fans are watching closely, waiting for the next spark to ignite the powder keg. In a sport defined by milliseconds, egos, and razor-thin margins, even the smallest crack can become a fault line. And right now, Formula One feels like it's teetering on the edge of one. Carlos Sainz's fiery remarks struck a nerve across the paddock and beyond, especially among those who believe the FIA has taken its regulatory reach too far when it comes to policing driver behavior, particularly in off-track contexts. What some saw as a moment of honest frustration, others interpreted as a direct breach of the FIA's newly tightened policies aimed at curbing inappropriate language during official F1 broadcasts and media engagements. In a season already simmering with unrest, Sainz's outburst stood out not just for its bluntness, but for the response it nearly provoked. According to the sport's revised conduct code, any use of profane or disrespectful language during formal appearances, press conferences, TV interviews, and public debriefs can result in disciplinary action, including fines or even grid penalties. So when Sainz dropped a sharply worded critique during his Bahrain media session, many expected immediate consequences. Yet in a somewhat surprising twist, the FIA's press officer opted not to escalate the situation further. Behind closed doors, a private meeting reportedly took place between Sainz and senior FIA personnel. Sources close to the matter revealed that the Spanish driver expressed regret over the language he had used and offered a direct apology, an act which, according to insiders, helped defuse what might otherwise have become a much larger disciplinary issue. Instead of launching a formal investigation or imposing another financial penalty, the matter was merely noted and passed along to the stewards for documentation. In the end, Sainz narrowly avoided receiving a second official sanction in less than a week, though not without leaving a lasting impression on the sport's increasingly delicate relationship between its governing body and its athletes. This incident has now become the latest entry in a growing catalog of examples that critics cite when questioning the FIA's consistency and proportionality in its rule enforcement. Last season alone offered plenty of contentious precedents. Max Verstappen, for instance, was handed a community service assignment for an unrelated infraction involving physical contact with another driver after a race. In contrast, Charles Leclerc was issued a hefty €10,000 fine for swearing during a post-race press conference, a punishment some viewed as disproportionate, given the spontaneity and emotional context of the moment. Now, with Sainz's case in the spotlight, the recurring question returns. Where does the line lie between maintaining professionalism and allowing drivers to be, well, human? Formula One has always thrived on passion, adrenaline, and the raw emotion of competition. And yet, as more behavioral guidelines are implemented, drivers increasingly feel that their personalities are being constrained, their frustrations micromanaged, and their authenticity diluted. It's a delicate balance. On one hand, the FIA is under pressure to maintain a certain decorum and ensure that the sport's image remains palatable for global sponsors, broadcasters, and a diverse audience. On the other hand, fans and drivers alike are beginning to resent what they perceive as the over-sanitization of Formula One, an attempt to turn the paddock into a politically correct press machine, where every sentence is vetted and every emotion subdued. Sainz himself voiced a sentiment that struck a chord with many followers of the sport. In a particularly pointed moment during his exchange with journalists, he asked the question few dare to raise but many wonder silently. Where does the money from these fines actually go? I really hope someone tells me where those €10,000 are going, Sainz said with an air of both sarcasm and sincerity. If it's for a good cause, I'd like to know. At least then, I can say it served some purpose. The remark triggered a wave of reactions online, with fans demanding transparency from the FIA regarding the usage of funds collected through fines. For a sport that boasts billion-dollar revenue streams, television rights deals, and global sponsorships, the optics of fining drivers tens of thousands of euros for fleeting emotional outbursts, especially when the governing body remains opaque about how those funds are used, only adds fuel to the fire of discontent. The incident has also reignited broader conversations around mental health, emotional expression, and the human toll of performing in such an intense, high-pressure environment. Drivers are not machines. They are athletes operating at the razor's edge of performance, carrying the weight of national pride, team expectations, and personal ambition on their shoulders. When something as small as a late arrival due to a stomach issue can lead to a €10,000 fine, and a frustrated comment made in the heat of the moment nearly triggers further sanctions, it's easy to see why many feel the sport is in danger of losing touch with its human side. Ultimately, Sainz's episode might fade from the headlines in a few days, but the issues it represents will not. It highlights the increasingly complex relationship between drivers and the institutions that govern them, and the delicate tightrope Formula One must walk between discipline and expression, between image and authenticity. Whether this moment will prompt the FIA to re-evaluate its approach, or whether it will double down on its current path, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. In a season already brimming with tension, intrigue, and emotion, Carlos Sainz has once again reminded the world that Formula One is as much about character and conviction as it is about cornering speed and tire degradation. And perhaps, just perhaps, the loudest statement of the weekend didn't come from an engine, but from a driver who dared to speak his mind.